Okay, Heritage Sports Podcast. We're breaking down Coach Prime, the series on Amazon, episode 2. I just got to start, even though it was in the middle of the episode. They feature Young Dolph. I'm a big Young Dolph fan. It was just great to see what they did for him and his family and his extended family and his artists and people that knew him and loved him. You could tell, it meant a lot to Shedeur. He was very tight with Dolph. And I've been saying this all season. I'm like, man, he kind of look like him. You can see where he looks like Deion, but he got like a lot of mannerisms that remind me of Dolph. I was like, man, just the way he talks, the way he goes at things, it just is similar. And I knew they were tight. He was in the To Be Honest video when that was Dolph's Rich Slave album, and Deion and Coach Prime and Shedeur was in that video throwing the football around, so that was pretty cool. I remember seeing that, and they played that Hall of Fame song, which is one of my best songs that I love to hear from him. I still can't listen to a few songs because of everything that happened, because it just it meant a lot to me at the time, and now it just sucks that I hear it, and I'll never see it perform live. But anyway, they ran out of the PRE tunnel, which was cool, the paper route tunnel. For the Grambling game, and I'll get back to that in a second. It was just dope to have that synergy. And I remember Dolph being in the locker room the season before, and them talking about it, and Deion was basically still recovering when it went down, and him having to speak to his kids about what goes on in life, unfortunately. All right, but let's get to the rest of the episode. So they start at Tennessee State. It was a lackadaisical game. They won 16-3. And I will say they do have a lot of uniforms. Jackson State does have a lot of uniforms. I hope that continues. And the thing that they just blared out at me a lot when I'm looking at Coach Prime is Jackson State had a lot of NFL-looking players. They really did. I mean, whether it was a lineman, whether it was cornerbacks, whether it's quarterback, you could tell the talent level went way up. And Coach Prime mentioned that. He said, all 32 scouts have now come to Jackson State to look at different players that they have. But the good news is they covered it. They were talking about the water crisis had progressed in Jackson and got to a point where water and ice could be used again. I think people watching that hopefully will put a renewed pressure on that region, because just being from the South and knowing how things in the South goes, these things could be put on the back burner. I hope this is put it back on the front, because it's not completely fixed. You don't want it to continue to get worse. And I don't understand why there's not an investment in the infrastructure to make sure that these things never happen there. But from there, the series featured local business owners that were excited about the first home game against Grambling. It was great to see, people of color, see black people talk about, they're expecting people to come and standing, and then showing fans standing in line for tickets that take forever at the ticket box. But Jackson State puts out 60,000 fans before Coach Prime, during Coach Prime, and I'm going to guarantee after Coach Prime. That is a institution there, and it makes the city, it pushes the city forward, and I hope it continues to do the same. The practice week again featured a lot of NFL scouts. They did a profile on Coach Deion's day person, Sam, which was great to see his background. You always see him kind of in videos just to learn more about him. He seems to be his day-to-day person, whatever he needs. There's no real job description, but knowing a little bit more about him and his upbringing, and how Deion, Coach Prime, just took him and embraced him and brought him into his family and his work atmosphere. It was really good to see. Then, of course, we saw some more Travis Hunter. He was they showed really how injured Travis Hunter was to start the season. He couldn't even put pressure on one side, and he played the first game. He lied. Basically, it was like he said 90%, but he was way lower he was essentially 20 to 30%, but he played anyway. But then he went back to fishing, which was great to see. Back to bass fishing. It's great to see his hobbies and what he used to get through that part of the season. But as you all may know, if you watch Jackson State football, he ended up getting way better and doing a whole lot more. And it's interesting how the episode goes back and forth between different things. It's this happened, that happened, this happened. You're like, what? And then they go back after they showed how bad Travis Hunter's injury was and him fishing. Then they go back to Coach Prime's blood clot complications, the loss of his toes, the 30 to 40 pounds that he lost because he just wasn't eating, and the real-time family reaction. And it showed how fast his health went down. It went from him, the normal Coach Prime, intense workaholic type of coach that gets up early and wants to connect with his team, to immediately a nosedive, and how fast his health went down, and people their heads were spinning and they couldn't understand it. But it was a testament to his spirit, Coach Prime's just insistence on being there and getting back. And as long as he wasn't losing his life, he was going to continue to go forward. It was very inspirational. I took a lot from it. Again, he was just unrelenting. And they fast forward. They have our really first appearance of Tracy Edmonds. It was great to see her. And she was describing her relationship not only with Coach Prime, but with the kids. And you could tell that it's family. And Coach Prime saying that she's a necessity really, really was just a really nice thing to hear about what you should be saying about people in your life, what you should be saying about family members. They are a necessity. But Tracy then describes the strength of each child of Coach Prime, and it was funny. She said her favorite was Shiloh. He was the underdog and always being talked about. So that's cool. And then they eased on like a transition to Shedeur's recruitment to Jackson State. Now that was cool because a lot of people know he was actually committed to go play for Willie Taggart. He was out in FAU, and you didn't know how that recruitment went. And Shedeur was like, I didn't say anything. I was just waiting until his pops came in, and he said, look, let's just get this out the way. They chopped up business, and for him, he saw the bigger picture, knowing his Coach Prime staff would of course want to advance his career, and the fact that he wants to advance his father's career, because he said, how will recruits look if he could not get his own son to play with him? I thought that was a very, very mature thing for him to say and to put it in perspective. Now we go on to Hue Jackson. Again, they go from one thing to the next. They go about the first home game. Hue Jackson makes a feature. He's the coach of Grambling State University. And then they went through the game. The game was really close. It was a lot of turnovers. Grambling could definitely play with Jackson in the first half, Jackson State. And from my just vantage point, they were not afraid. We're going to get turnovers and we're going to try to make this competitive. And it was really competitive. The first half ended 21-17 or something like that, with Jackson State having 21. And there's a switch of intensity that I'm going to look forward to seeing if that's going to come to Colorado. They know when they're controlling the game, and they know when they're losing the grip. And it felt like they were losing the grip at halftime, a little bit before halftime. The intensity from the coaches, I'm talking about Coach Prime, I'm talking about all of the staff, turned up. You see Coach Kevin Mathis just going from one intense level where he was at to another. And it was real. And as soon as they played well, Grambling played well, they tried to stop the train and turn it around. And the only way they could do that was getting way more intense. So the team came out of halftime. They ran off 40 points. They ended up winning 66-24 or so. So that was basically the end of the episode. But I will say this. Coach Prime said something that was super, super just real. He was like, the team is just playing to win. And when you just play to win, You can get tight. You can let things go, and that's how you can end up losing games if you're just playing to win. It's more of a playing for the relief. That he is basically saying they need to dominate. They need to play not only the other team, but they need to play against themselves. They need to play their best football, and that's a sign of a good coach, a great coach. I think the intensity part is going to really be hard going to the Pac-12 if the team's not there. If they don't have the horses, because Jackson State had the horses, you could tell, you could see it, the NFL talent kind of guys. If they don't have the horses at Colorado that first year, and they're playing USC, and Caleb Williams is just beating their backside like nobody's business, that intensity is not gonna go anywhere. Like, that intensity is not gonna change anything as far as the talent on the field goes. So that's gonna be interesting to see how that transpires. I will say it wasn't a long episode. This one was about 45, 46 minutes. The next episode I envision to be longer. It's the infamous Who is Swag, against Alabama State and their coach there. So it should be cool to see. I'm really excited about episode 3 and breaking that down. Again, I absolutely loved the Young Dolph segment. It was everything that it wasn't anything I expected, but it exceeded everything I thought when I saw it on the screen. They had so many good interviews from people that knew him and loved him, including his partner. And it just sucks, where things are. But hey, paper out, Frank.